Welcome back to the Cricket Today podcast on Friday, February 9. Up and about with some cricket being back. It's only been a few days, but I'm already missing it. So glad that the T20 start tonight. Thank you very much to all of our new subscribers on YouTube, getting some traction on there. We'll answer any questions you want, any thoughts. Doesn't even have to be to do with cricket. If you want to give us some pot shots or anything like that, we'll answer it and get around it in the podcast. I'm your host, Liam McAllion, also known as the Stats Guy. I'm here with Marcus Bazzano. He's up and about as well. How you going, Marcus?
A little bit stuffy in the nose though. So if I sound a bit weird, it's not just my regular voice. Just let everyone know.
I reckon you usually sound like that anyway. We're also here with Leo Mullaly. How you going, Leo?
Good, thanks, Stats Guy. I think we need to play a drinking game. Take a shot every time Stats Guy says up and about.
It just always gets into my head. I don't know why I put in the run sheet every time. I'm like Ron Burgundy. If you put it in the run sheet, it's coming out. So I need to change that in the run sheet, I reckon. Today we're going to cover our favourite cricketers, actually, from multiple countries. We get into that with Daniel Cherny in an interview. So that's straight before that. So an interview with Daniel Cherny, Code Sports journalist there. And then finishing off with a first T20 Australia versus West Indies preview. So we've got a bit of everything going on today before the T20s start tonight. Let's get right into it, lads. Bit of a strange one, but we talked about this with Dan in the interview, so it sort of jogged our memory of a few players. Going to have a look at the best cricketers who have played for multiple nations. So there's not too many out there, but for some reason, cricket has it more than other sports. So let's have a look at it. We'll start with you, Marcus. Why not? Who you got?
Well, I'm going to go a bit different here. In men's Test cricket and ODIs, this player was featured for two countries, England and Zimbabwe.
Wow.
For Test cricket, he played for England between 2014 and 17, and then, funnily enough, he played for Zimbabwe last year. And it's Gary Balance.
Wow.
Gary Balance. He played both ODIs and Test matches. He actually scored a century in the Test match for Zimbabwe. He only played one match, so he's got an average of 155 because he got 137 not out, and then whatever it was to get to 155, what's that, like 18 or something. So
that's funny.
he's only one of two players to score a century for two nations in Test cricket. So there's a little fun fact for you. So Gary Balance for me, England and Zimbabwe.
That's a bloody great start. I love it. That's a good start. Leo, who have you got?
Well, I'm going a bit more recent and a bit more Aussie now in terms of Tim David. So if you don't know, I think Stats Guy finds out in about 5 minutes when he interviews Dan Cherny. Tim David played for Singapore, and he had a pretty good career at Singapore, but then he obviously made the move to switch over to Australia, and he's become one of the, I guess, biggest commodities in T20 cricket, selling for huge money in the IPL. And he's just an extraordinary hitter of the ball. Just want to give a shout out though to Owen Morgan, Ireland and England, and the entirety of the English cricket team. Good job, lads. Stats Guy, who you got?
Before we get to that, you're right. The entire cricket team of England, I don't know why I said it like that, England cricket team, that sounds a bit better, are literally from other countries, aren't they? You got half of them are Kiwis, half of them South African, half of them, they're just stealing players from everywhere. When your captain, Owen Morgan, has an Irish accent, should they really be playing for England? I don't know. I don't want to get into all that.
To be fair, the Aussies do have a couple
true
cross-country players, sort of.
That's true.
So
not as bad as
like England and stuff, but
nowhere near as bad as actually the Socceroos, where we have guys that never actually have been to Australia before they play the match.
The thickest Scottish accents as well. They're all Scottish.
I know
why.
We just find Scottish people in the soccer. Maybe we need to get Scottish.
I reckon. Well, are you eligible to play for
for Scotland?
The Aussie squad?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Scotland.
I reckon you have a probably good Scottish accent on your Stats Guy.
Yeah.
Give it a go now.
Yeah, bring it on.
I'm not doing that.
Just say, bring out the pint of Guinness.
No, that's not Scottish. That's
English.
That's English. Oh, no, it's Irish, mate. Irish. Scottish is what have we got? Haggis. Beautiful.
Yeah, bring out the haggis.
Bring out the. What are we doing here? All right, I'm going to get into my players. Dirk Nannes, the big fast bowler. It was a big bustling fast bowler. Played for the Netherlands and Australia. People will forget that he actually played. He only played the one ODI. I'm having a look here for Australia, and he didn't. He got a wicket against Scotland, so not too good when we smashed Scotland in that match. But then before that, only 2 months before that, he debuted for the Netherlands, and he played this few tournaments with them, a few different games overseas. He played for them in 2009, got 28 wickets in 17 matches, was really solid for the Netherlands. He did get to play against some of the lower ranked nations, but he did really well. He was a really solid domestic player, Dirk Nannes, and just didn't really take that next step into the international cricket for Australia, but he was really solid for the Netherlands. We've got a few Netherlands that we talked about before the show. Tom Cooper was really solid for the Netherlands. Who else was there? I was going to say Luke Ronke, but he played for New Zealand and Australia. There's a lot of guys that have played for multiple nations from Australia, probably just because they're like, I can't make the Australian team. What else can I do? So I think, Dirk Nannes is the big man. I don't mind that one at all. All right. That's our best cricketers who have played for another nation. I didn't even think we would do that, but that's a great little segment there. Now let's swiftly get into an interview with Code Sports journalist Daniel Cherny. It's full of stats, facts, and player comparisons ahead of the T20s that start tonight. All right, cricket today with another special segment. Rather than the usual knuckleheads, we've brought into some extra professionalism, as I like to say. I'm here with Daniel Cherny, cricket, AFL, AFLW, sports journalist for Code Sports, one of the best in the business, who's up and about after an Aussie whitewash in the ODI series. Thanks for coming on, Dan, and how you going?
Good to be with you, Liam. You're going well yourself?
Yeah, going really well, really well. Especially the Aussies did really well. Bit sad for the West Indies in that last ODI, but hopefully they can bounce back in these 2020s and make a really good series there. I'm going to get into some questions if you don't mind. After the shocking performance the other day from that final ODI from the West Indies, was a little bit embarrassing. It felt a bit bad for them. Quickest ODI in Australia ever, obviously. Can this West Indies side still build into something strong? Are they just lacking a bit of experience? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question. I sort of had a closer look at their squad afterwards, and it's not as though, if this was a team full of guys in their early 20s, you'd think, maybe they can grow in. But yeah, I know they had Teddy Bishop, who made his debut the other day, and it was pretty forgettable.
I know.
Debut, both on a personal and a team front. And Matthew Ford's still a pretty young player. I think he's 21. They got a couple of guys in their sort of mid-20s, but it's not a particularly inexperienced team. There's plenty of guys in their 30s who've been around a while on the fringes of the side, or played a fair bit of ODI or T20 international cricket, or even some Test cricket in some cases. So, look, you'd like to think they were a side that's really building, but I'm not sure there's that much there. I mean, if that's the best they've got in terms of the kids coming through, and especially, it's one thing if they'd gone up against a full strength Australian side, but they didn't, as we know. I mean, they went up against an Australian lineup missing, Mitch Marsh, the reigning Allen Border medalist, clearly all the frontline quicks with the exception of that one game played by Josh Hazlewood. Yep. No Glenn Maxwell. Clearly, Travis Head sat out the last couple of games. David Warner's retired. So this is not the World Cup winning 11. Quite significantly different side. And to be beaten as badly as they were.
I know, it's horrible.
I look back at the summit to date with the West Indies, and, hopefully for their sake, they put up a better show in the T20s, and that they've got a bit of experience back for that. But for these games, which is clearly the one that they're really eyeing this year, out of a home T20 World Cup for them. But if you look at the summit today, look, Shamar Joseph obviously is the standout player by, the length of the flames.
Yeah.
And then Kirk McKenzie showed a bit in that test. There were the odd bits and pieces performances here or there. Look, I think Casey Carty, if you're taking out a few, if you're trying to find some very silver linings from that series, he was good, and he's still young enough to have a fair upside. Not a particularly experienced player, but from an international cricket perspective. But no, look, you're clutching at straws with the West Indies, and then the way they played. It was a pretty ordinary effort across the three games, in particular that debacle in Canberra. Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There is some guys that are building the experience, but a lot of those guys probably should have done a lot better, especially with the amount of games they've played. I'll get into some more positive stuff. Obviously, as you mentioned, we'd had a lot of debutants in the ODI fixture for the Aussies. Bartlett of 8 for 38 off his 2 matches. Jake Fraser-McGurk, your man, Mini Maxi, did really well. Sutherland, who I've seen you like to talk up as well. Do you think these guys will have a strong future? I personally do. I think a lot of people do as well. But do you think they'll have a strong future in Aussie colours and in multiple formats, possibly in the Test, but definitely in the white ball? What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, I mean, I suppose they're all slightly different cases. I mean, to start with Bartlett, he's a guy who hasn't played a lot of red ball cricket in recent times. He's had injury issues with his back. Hasn't played a first-class match since April 2023, so it's almost a year, 10 months or so. Played another, but had been on the Australia A radar then, so shows that he's in the thinking. I mean, he's not express, but he's he swings it really nicely. We saw that across the 2 games. Skillful bowler, had an excellent Big Bash League campaign. So, and at 25, he's in an age bracket where you'd think there'd still be plenty of opportunities for him down the track.
Plenty. Yep.
I don't think necessarily that he's going to, overtake Cummins, Hazelwood, and Stark anytime soon. But they're obviously all in their 30s and have futures. Obviously the wrong side of 30 and not going to go on forever. So I think he's a guy that has a future across all formats, and it probably shows that it's a good sign that it's not all about airspeed, as they like to say. That someone who just has a bit of skill and bowls it a bit slower can have an impact. Will Sutherland's an interesting one as well. Really that bowling all-rounder at this stage, a solid batter without being probably a world beater on the batting front. Also not express, but again, skillful, has that height, so it gets the bit of extra bounce, really good in the field. Excellent leader, was named Victorian captain.
Captain so young, 21,
24. He's really well liked within that Victorian group, that they really get around playing behind him. He's a much loved player.
Definitely.
Within that group. So any all-rounder in this, particularly any pace bowling all-rounder in this era, is always going to be in Cameron Green's shadow, or certainly for the time being.
I know, yeah.
So, in one respect, maybe he hasn't been born into a great era in that respect. Clearly, you've got Mitch Marsh there on the scene as well, albeit he's not bowling as much as he once did. Aaron Hardy is coming through as well. But, no, look, I think Sutherland, particularly from a white ball perspective, where you can pick a few more all-rounders and have some versatility in the side, he's got a bright future, and it's good to see he's had a go in Australian colours. He's looked like he's up to it. I don't think he can be a regular selection, but across that next build to the World Cup, I think you'll get more opportunities, and he's someone that you imagine is going to get more of a look in. Fraser McGurk is the most fascinating one, and the one that probably is
everyone's talking about. Yeah,
everyone's talking about, exactly right.
Definitely.
Because he's probably got the highest ceiling.
Definitely,
because he's just such a freakish skillful batter, and has all the shots, and just he's just so explosive, dynamic, all those words you want to use. Clearly can score very quickly, and we saw that. Wasn't it classic, that 10 off 5, 4-6?
Yeah, he's gone 4-6, and then he's gone, I need to go again. I have to go again. He said he needed to probably chill a little bit there, but that will come with more experience, you'd think.
And the temperament's been a bit of the issue for him. But the thing with Fraser McGurk is he is only 21. It feels like, because he was a literal child prodigy. This is a guy who was signed, a kid who was signed by the Melbourne Renegades as a replacement player at 16. So, and made a first-class half-century for Victoria before he could drive. So this is legally drive. This is a really talented kid who's had some maturing to do, probably both on and off field. And it's clearly far from a finished product, but there's huge upside. We've seen that in the UAE, where he's gone off and made runs. So again, people saying, it's only we've only seen glimpses at international level, and yes, clearly he's only played a couple of
games,
ODIs, but he has shown it a bit already in that IL T20, which is, if it's not international level, it's certainly got international caliber players playing, and he outshone David Warner in that series. So look, I think he's definitely going to be around the white ball setup for a while now. I think that because he's got such upside. I'm sure they're going to give him every opportunity. Probably beyond the T20 World Cup. I don't think he's going to make a late play for that, but certainly beyond that. And then in terms of Test cricket, he's the wild card. He's the joker in the pack, especially at a time when there aren't a glut of high run scoring players in Shield cricket.
Absolutely, yeah.
His Shield record is not particularly flattering for sure, although he did make a ton for South Australia against his former state, Victoria, earlier this season. So he's the kind of guy where I feel like they wouldn't need to see a lot from him in Shield cricket before considering maybe giving him a go, because they reckon, I could see them thinking this guy has something different, which very few players have, can take games away from other teams. The David Warner comparison is an easy one to make, and maybe a bit of, it's an understandable one to make. Warner had shown a bit in first-class cricket before he played in Test cricket, but not a hell of a lot. I could certainly see Fraser McGurk becoming a Test player down the track, but again, there's a fair bit of water to go under the bridge before we get to that point.
I'll agree with you on that. A lot of those guys, definitely are going to be having solid careers in the white ball. Just be interesting to see where that Test team goes, especially with a lot of guys going to be retiring over the next 2 to 5 years, you'd say, especially the bowling cartel. Next one I got for you, 4 debutants, which we've just highlighted in the ODIs, but only one was picked in the T20 squad. I think that was Spencer Johnson in the upcoming T20s. Do you think George Bailey and the selectors have chosen the right team? We had a bit of a debate on the podcast earlier in the week. We thought there could have been a few more of the BBL players in there that did really well to reward that. but then there's another debate on experience and things like that. So I was just wondering, your thoughts on choosing that right T20 squad.
Look, I think the thing with the T20 squad is ultimately you've got a T20 World Cup, which is only 4 months away. So it's probably not a time. You probably move past the point of huge tinkering. I think if they had a bit of a look at guys, and look, the nature of the calendar is that they just haven't played that much T20 international cricket across since the last World Cup. They played 8 games, the 3 in South Africa last August, September, and then the 5 at the back end of the World Cup. Which, in both series they did blood kids. They Matt Short, Aaron Hardy, Tanvi Sangha played. Then we saw the likes of Chris Green went over, and Josh Philippi, and some of these guys who had a look in before. But guys got a bit more of a taste of it. So they've had a bit of a look at things. Jason Behrendorff, who's not a rookie to international cricket by any stretch, but has had a lot of injuries over the journey. Clearly, he was very good in that India series, and he's playing in these West Indies matches. But the problem, and he won the T20 Player of the Year
of the year. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
the interesting point is that he then gets dropped for the New Zealand tour, even before the West Indies matches have happened. And ultimately, what this comes back to is, at least from a fast bowling perspective, and probably in a sense from a batting perspective, is how much stock do you place in BBL form? Where does the BBL stack up in terms of quality global cricket? I think realistically, the tournament that they will actually place a lot more stock in moving forward, heading ahead of this T20 World Cup, especially given that just about all the members of the potential squad are going to be playing, is the IPL. And
Absolutely.
I can see a few of the fringe positions being fought over through the IPL in the lead up, and the selectors are on the record. George Bailey has said that they're going to use that as a selection trial. I mean, if you go back to late 2022 and when Australia missed the T20 World Cup, Australia had 121 on home soil. They're hosting it, and they had a pretty underwhelming tournament. They got flogged by New Zealand first up, never really recovered, and then didn't do enough against Afghanistan on net run rate to get through. Easy to forget, Mitchell Starc was dropped for that final match for Kane Richardson, of all people.
Yeah.
And it feels, it feels a long time ago. It's not that long ago. And at that point, there was a sense that they were going to move past the big three from a white ball perspective, but at least being deferential to them and always picking them. But in the interim, they've gone and won the World Cup, the 50 over World Cup. They've been very resilient from a physical perspective, all three of them, including particularly Josh Hazlewood, who had been the one they were the most concerns about. And they've done the job, and it looks like they're going to back them in again, which really means, especially in a World Cup in the West Indies, where they have indicated they will probably go for a second spinner in the squad. There's really only one backup paceman spot there. So Nathan Ellis has done exceptionally well over, around the circuit for a while now. Sean Abbott has done little wrong. Behrendorff, as we touched on, doesn't leave much more room. And Spencer Johnson did have a taste of things across those series last year. He's another guy that they're clearly rate. But how many of these guys can you pick when you're going for the big three? It's just
it's a good problem to have, I think. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
No, I think it's a really good problem to have. As you mentioned, IPL as well. I think that is definitely obviously the best T20 tournament outside of international things like that. So I think that's a really good point there. Just be interesting how we go with a lot of those older guys. But yeah, as you said, they want to pick experience. They want to pick guys that are known to be in the big moments in the big tournament. So don't mind that. I'll finish off with the last one here, just a bit of a positive one. Who are you most looking forward to, and who will shine for Australia in these T20s, maybe in the West against the West Indies and against New Zealand? But who do you think is the one we're going to be looking out for and the one that's going to shine the most?
Oh, shine the most. Look, I think the way he's going, I think he's not playing this first series, but Josh Hazlewood, I think, is always just going so well. It's a bit of a vanilla pick, but
no, I don't mind that. Yeah,
but he's such a talent, and it's just going so well. But I think the most interesting selection or interesting storyline through these T20s is going to be Steve Smith, and he's again not playing the first batch, but playing the New Zealand matches, and how he goes against Travis Head, because realistically they're probably vying for one spot in that Australian top six. Yeah. Along with David, to partner David Warner, assuming they back Warner in, or he's had a poor ILT20, but you'd think I think they still will, yeah. But they'll still go with him. Smith was, I remember, dropped from the Aussie T20 side during that World Cup on home soil. So he's very much a fringe player now. Had a great BBL last summer. Hasn't played a lot of T20 cricket in the interim. Comes into the side. I had a bit of a look. They had a bit of a look at him in India, and he stayed for the start of that series and was okay. Probably doesn't have the gears clearly that Travis Head has. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And the other one that I think is just a little bit of a watch is Tim David, who really didn't have a very good BBL.
Struggled, yeah.
And, there's been such hype around Tim David, and clearly at his best, he's an incredible player. And they'd been very determined to find that middle order power hitter who can take the game away from teams, which they probably lacked for a while as that specialist role. Mm-hmm. But and look, he's probably still going to make the World Cup squad just because of his upside. But just a little bit of watch. He'd want to go well, and because they've got options there, they've got flexibility. They've got Josh Inglis and Matthew Wade both in the squad. You think they're both going to go because they'll need a backup keeper, and they like Wade's experience. They've got Marcus Stoinis around the mark as well. He's back.
Other big hitters, yeah.
Cameron Green, who's more a top order player in T20 cricket, but isn't even in the squad. They've sort of sent him back to Shield cricket, but he's going to play in the IPL. So they've got some options there, flexibility. You've still got Short and Hardy and these guys who are not far off the mark either. So for someone like a Tim David and a Steve Smith, these guys are playing for their World Cup spots, I think, over the next few weeks.
No, I think that's a great call. I had a look at some of the stats in that New Zealand squad. I think Tim David actually had the highest average in T20 internationals out of the people pick, which did surprise me a little bit, but it shows that he's done actually pretty well for Australia. I think he's around 35 average, which is really good in T20 international. It did surprise me a bit, but like you said, he's got a lot of upside still.
The one thing with Tim David you've got to be careful of from a statistical perspective is some of those runs have come from Singapore.
Yes, true, actually.
Yeah, he did play for them. I couldn't tell you exactly what
I completely forgot about that. Yeah, good call.
But it's a good way to bolster your averages playing for Singapore against with respect to some of the lower Asian nations. So, he's. But look, even so, he's shown he's capable at the top level. And again, just to go back to that earlier point, I think. I'm not sure we read that much. I don't know how much we read into these West Indies matches compared to, say, how much they would read into the IPL or the New Zealand matches. I mean, ultimately you can only play you're playing, but realistically, I think the attacks they're going to face in India, especially in the conditions probably more similar to what they're going to get in the West Indies compared to what they get in Perth in February against the West Indies. So
definitely.
Anyway, interesting.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, made some really good points there. I think that's it. So check out Daniel Cherny on Code Sports. Some great articles at the moment, all over Twitter as well, at Daniel Cherny. Thanks for coming on, Dan. That was good fun.
Always is, Liam. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Let's get right back into the usual show.
All right, welcome back to the usual show. We got the T20 starting tonight between Australia and the West Indies. It feels like Australia and the West Indies have just been playing for months, or had to have, but it's been awesome. It's been great to follow. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's get into a prediction for the game tonight at Blundstone Arena in Hobart. So we're back to Hobart. Pretty small ground there, so we should see some absolute bombs, I reckon. Who have you got, Leo, for your prediction and your man of the match, please?
I think Aussies win this. I do think it'll be close, though. I actually like the Windies squad, and if it is one format they are better at than the others, it is T20s. I think I saw Akil Hussain in the squad. I really, really love what he brings. Underrated bowler, can beat both ends of the bat. So can beat both edges of the bat. And he's a very good batsman too. I think Andre Russell's also in the squad. So they've got some firepower there, the Windies. But I still think Australia will have enough to get this over the line, especially down in Hobart. They're just tricky conditions down there. There's just something about Hobart. Something's in the air down there. Tricky conditions. I've got Josh Inglis for my man of the match. Really impressed me in the ODIs. Hopefully he's at the top of the order again, but knowing Australia will bat him at 7 in T20s and open him in ODIs, something ridiculous. But he's in good form, good touch, and I reckon he'll capitalise on this Windies bowling lineup. Who you got, Stats Boy?
Oh, that was weird. I'm going to go Australia to win. I don't mind your call of this being really close. I'm having a look at the squad as well. You got Paran, who's a solid player. Andre Russell. Who else we got? Hussain was, like you mentioned, he was really good for the Renegades. Only had a short stint in the Big Bash, but he was spinning it both ways and was really good. So this is definitely. I said the other day that the ODIs were their best chance, but having a look at the more
experienced guys in this shorter format in the T20s. I think they got a sneaky chance, but you got to go Australia. We absolutely whitewashed them. I'm going to go Spencer Johnson. I think he's going to make his debut tonight. I looked at the bowling cartel that we've put out in the squad. You got Nathan Ellis, who's out injured, I reckon, who was in that squad. I reckon Spencer Johnson's going to replace him, probably open the bowling with Big Dorf or Joshy Hazelwood. We'll have to wait and see. But if Spencer Johnson plays, I think he's going to absolutely tear it up. He's in the form of his life. He's got so much confidence in swinging the ball both ways, and he's got the change-ups, as he showed in the Big Bash, being the second leading wicket taker. So I think he's going to be the man of the match. Australia, but could be close. Like you said, in Hobart, it's a weird ground. There's something in the air that might swing a bit, usually overcast down there, so we'll have to wait and see. Who have you got, Marcus?
Well, again, we're looking at another Australia win here. It's just hard to go against them at the moment, but I do think it'll be a really good match. Although the Test series against Pakistan feels like an age away, doesn't it?
I know.
Because we've just been playing the West Indies so much. So I'm going to go Glenn Maxwell as the man of the match. Obviously, he had his stories after the Big Bash, obviously having a big night out, but he's all good to go. He's fit, he's playing some golf. He's looking good, and this is his format where he thrives. And I think he can do the damage a little bit with both the ball and the bat.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think he's banned from a few nightclubs in Adelaide, and I think he's also banned from golf carts and opening doors. I think he has a personal door opener now, so that he doesn't run through any more doors. So hopefully Maxi's all right. I'm glad I actually didn't hear about that. I'm glad that he's all right and he's playing again, because we need him in the side to, especially in the future for the T20 World Cup. All right, I think that's it for the show, lads. So get right around us. We'll be back with this on Monday. Thank you very much to the expertise of Code Sports journalist Daniel Cherny. Every week he makes me learn a lot, and just knows the ins and outs of the Aussie side, so it's absolutely awesome to see. Check out some socials and interviews ahead of the T20 tonight. So get right around the show. Subscribe on your podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. Like and review it, would you? Chuck a follow to Cricket Today and Cricket Today AU all over the socials. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. Had a bit of a fun game that Leo did up with the emojis, guessing the players and things like that. We got some of the biggest names in world cricket on that, so have a look at that. That was really good fun. Send in any questions via the socials, anything you want us to chat to us about. It's good fun on there as well. That's it, I think. Thank you very much, Leo.
Cheers, Stats Guy.
Thanks, Marcus.
Very good, Stats Guy.
Thanks, Gerald, for producing. Thanks to me. And that's another episode of Cricket Today done. We're out.